Alright, today we're going to be looking at an Excalibur build guide for the less than well, you know what I mean. For all of our other broke players out here, we're going to be looking at a cheaper build for Excalibur as well as how to play him. So first off, let's go into the arsenal and take a look at what we have here. Don't worry, ignore the primed mods. I'm going to reset those with the standard version. One moment. Alright, this is the build that I personally use. As you can see, we have Steel Charge up here to increase our Exalted Blade's damage, which is going to be Excalibur's 4th ability. We have the 3 Umbrals to increase Power Strength, which will also increase the damage of his 4th ability, as well as the damage of his 1st, being Slash Dash. Fun fact, if you have your 4th ability out, Slash Dash will do additional damage to enemies. These 3 mods will also stack on top of each other. For example, if I remove Umbral Fiber, you'll see it's 50% strength there. But if I put the Umbral Fiber back on, you'll see my strength went back up to 60% on that mod. Next, we're going to have Continuity, which is going to help the duration on Radial Howl, which is going to be very important for crowd controlling enemies, because eventually your damage will fall off and you'll need more than 1 or 2 hits to bring them down. And Radial Howl, while also crowd controlling them, it will give you finisher damage on your Exalted Blade, which will help bolster that damage drop off. It will also increase the duration of Warcry, which is the helmet ability that I chose to use on him. If you have questions about the helmet system, I will link that in another video. One thing I did forget to mention was that strength will also increase the armor increase and the speed increase, as well as the speed decrease on enemies, correlatively. Also, I'm using Eternal War as the augment for that helmet ability, so that way we can get additional time when killing enemies, which, when you're using Excalibur's 4th ability, which usually you're going to have out, you'll be able to kill multiple enemies very quickly, which will help you stack up a lot of extra time. Onward to Flow, because extra energy is a good thing on Excalibur. And Adaptation. There is an argument to be made that Rolling Guard is more effective. Personally, it depends on what helmet ability you're using. I tend to use Adaptation because I can cut their DPS by a lot with Warcry. As you can see, it'll reduce their movement speed and their attack speed by 50%. So Adaptation is usually more than enough. Should they happen to get through my health, I do have Quick Thinking on as well, which will help increase your survivability because it will drain your energy as reserve health once your health reaches 2. As you can see over here, I have Arcane Energized. This is not required, but if you do not have it, you may want to put on more efficiency. You can swap Eternal War out with Streamline. Also, I have Arcane Fury, which will also further increase the damage on Exalted Blade. If you don't have this, it's not a huge deal. If you do, it may open up some breathing room in your aura slot, so you can use something like Rejuvenation to help your team out. You can use Growing Power, which will not only increase the damage of your Exalted Blade, it will also increase the effects of all your other abilities. So there's a good argument to be made there. Alright, and for the Excel slot, we have Power Drift. This is really just a matter of preference. You could use Coaction Drift, which is usually a good pick more often than not. You could use something like Endurance Drift if you really want the extra parkour velocity, which I think is good, but I'm not sure that it's worth giving up the power, strength, and the knockdown resistance for. Handspring is also a very good pick, because getting knocked down can get you killed very quickly. If I had to recommend an alternative though, I would have to say Mobilize, because it does help your bullet jumps and your aim, glide, and wall latch durations, which can usually be pretty helpful, especially if you're trying to get through a mission fairly quickly. But for now, we're going to use this one. Take a moment to take a gander at that. Alright, let's move on to our Exalted Blade. As you probably saw, I'm not using a chromatic blade setup on this build. I will show you a secondary build featuring chromatic blade as well as a different helmet ability. But for now, we're using the 2 sacrificials for damage and crit chance, which is going to give us decent enough crit chance, as you can see there, to proc Berserker fairly often. We're using Primed Fever Strike and Voltax Strike. If you don't have Voltax Strike, you can use Focus Energy, which is right here. It will give you the same amount of electric damage, but it will also increase your melee combo efficiency. And if you run Zeneric, that will give you additional. While it's not terribly useful, should you get a good combo molt up on your Exalted Blade, you can use a good charged heavy attack to deal with heavier enemies. Say there's a disruption target or something of that nature running to a point, you can just hit it with a heavy attack and wipe it out pretty quickly. As I mentioned earlier, we're using Berserker for the additional attack speed, which will give us about 1.5-ish, or just shy of 1.6. Organ Shatter for the additional critical damage. Melee Prowess, because we're going to need some additional status since we're not using Chromatic Blade on this setup. And Condition Overload, because we're going to be priming the enemies with a secondary weapon. In this case, I'm using the new core, because as you can see, I have several statuses on this, 4 of them in fact, which will make our Condition Overload give us a 480% damage increase. So if we do the math, we have 480% bonus from the new core, 60% bonus from Steel Charge, we're up to 540, and then 180% from Arcane Fury, which gives us 720% extra melee damage. This will also apply for your regular melee. So should you be out of energy, do not fret. It will help this out as well. Alright, let's go give the Exalted Blade a damage test, and then we'll do an actual gameplay test. Like I said earlier, we can prime them. Notice the difference in damage? See, it only takes a moment to prime them. Right, now we're going to do an actual gameplay test. So let me reset these fellas. So what we're going to do is we have our blade out. We're going to blind, hit our war cry, so that way when the blind does break, it will take them longer to actually get back into the fight. Make sure to keep your radial blind up. That'll keep them from killing you as quickly. Should they be able to get free of it. Most of the time, they will be dead before they can actually before they can actually recover. And that's the general gist of it. I'm going to run one more simulation just to recap. Okay. Radial blind, climb, couple of good hits. Keep that blind up. Oh, if I could hit the thing, that'd be great. Climb. Another good thing about using the new core is it will put radiation pox on them, which will further add to your survivability. Not only will it bolster your damage, it'll keep them from shooting at you. Oh. For everyone who just saw that, you pardon my agility. And that is the general gist of Excalibur's gameplay. Thank you all who watched, and I will see you next time, which will be on a vaulted build. Goodbye.